Innovation Hour, I'm speaking with Josh Epstein, the Executive Director of REconomy, a Seattle-based nonprofit that promotes an ecosystem of reuse and sharing through their tool libraries, classes, and reuse store. Thanks for being with me, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
Awesome. So for our audience who's out there, what is REconomy? Besides what I just said.
You said it quite well. I'll just reiterate. We are a nonprofit organization based in Seattle and Shoreline, North King County area. And we are trying to support alternative economies. So that's reuse, sharing, reciprocity. We do this through tool lending libraries, classes, and generally just redistribution of resources, whether that's actual material or information.
Oh yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome. How did REconomy come about? You know, I saw on the website that a couple of your founders are still active in the organization, and so I was just wondering what the origin story is.
Yeah, we are lucky enough to have a couple of our founders still involved, and they are amazing. And so that is Joanne Kerr and Susan Gregory, two passionate community members in Northeast Seattle. They wanted to do something to create more climate resilience. So they started getting neighbors together and just having more conversations, presentations about what's being done, what can be done, what are some of the problems, what are some solutions. That went on relatively informally for a few years. They became a nonprofit that was actually called Sustainable Northeast Seattle. In 2011. Then in 2013, they got a sizable grant for about $50,000 through what was called Cleanscapes, is now REcology. And the grant helped them start the Northeast Seattle Tool Library, which was based off of West Seattle Tool Library and the Finney Neighborhood Association Tool Library that already existed for several years.
Oh, cool. So you all weren't the first tool library in the Seattle area, but another tool library. That's really interesting. Did you model your tool library off of the West Seattle library? Right
off of them. And they've modeled them off of other ones. And, often people ask, like, how did you come up with this idea? And we say we didn't. It's as old as time. It's as old as society. Civilization started when people started sharing.
Yeah. Resource sharing is how we build community.
Exactly.
How we stay, in relationship with each other, I think.
Right. We're doing it in this model that fits in with our modern society and capitalism. Even that, no, we didn't come up with how to even do that in this modern time. We're just trying to do it the best we can. And we still work with many tool libraries that are in the area.
Cool. That's amazing. I'm curious what your background is and how you came to Seattle REconomy.
Yeah. My mom actually likes to joke that this is what I've been building towards all my life. That very early on in my life, I just cared about saving stuff, whether that was money or things, and sharing came pretty naturally to me. I've been in the nonprofit world for a while. I did outdoor education with the YMCA and with Outward Bound. That was kind of my last career. And during the pandemic, my wife and I, we knew about tool libraries because we wanted to convert our garage into a living space and didn't have the tools to do that. Yeah. And they were pretty expensive, and we needed some pretty heavy duty machinery, and including some large scaffolding. And it turned out the Northeast Seattle Tool Library had those tools, and we were extremely excited about that. So I fell in love with the place, was a member for a couple of years. And then, during the pandemic, I found out that they were hiring, and I was a stay-at-home dad taking care of my 1.5-year-old Cedar. Cool. And it was just great timing. I wanted to get out, get a job. This was a part-time way to I just stepped in as the coordinator for the tool library. It was, match made in heaven. I fell in love with the community, fell in love with the job, and have helped build it up over the last 4 years, creating the second tool library in Shoreline, and increasing the classes and increasing the volunteership, and just bringing some more resource and funding to Seattle REconomy so that we can spread out that abundance.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. You mentioned So when we first chatted before this, we talked a little bit about sustainability and how Seattle REconomy kind of has a specific framework for, defining sustainability and also how that sustainability works with capitalism. So I kind of want to chat with you about that. And
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We think of sustainability in three ways. There's environmental sustainability, financial sustainability, and social sustainability. Mm-hmm. And we believe that we can't have any of these components without the others. Mm-hmm. If we lose financial sustainability, we can't be doing the good that we're doing in the world. So we are in that essence, a business. Mm-hmm. We need our social sustainability, our community around us, and all of that leads to environmental sustainability, we hope, which again will turn back into, if our environment is healthy, we have the resources we need, that'll keep our finances and social order in good shape. And then we also are firm believers in the circular economy, circularity, mm-hmm. regeneration, where resources are not just created, used, and thrown away, but are used, reused, repaired, redistributed. And, mm-hmm. And we do this through giving, sharing, and reciprocating. And so when you ask about like how this fits in with capitalism, that's been on our mind a lot. Again, as a business, even though it's a nonprofit business, we need to stay financially sustainable in this capitalistic world. Yeah. And so we found some really cool ways that we think that giving and circular economies actually balance out capitalism and support it to make a more resilient society and more resilient system. So for instance, at our tool libraries, we have a sliding scale model for donations for membership. And so you can pay as little as $0 or several $1 million. So we haven't had that person yet. Mm-hmm. We do have people pay thousands of dollars, which can support the folks that can't pay anything. We end up getting about $60 per member per year, which is a great deal for them. But we have so many people that donate that little amount that it keeps us afloat. We also do a tool sale twice a year. And
you have one upcoming, right?
Yes, it is coming up on the 21st. Not sure if this will be out in time for that, but then you missed it. Come and look for it next spring. It's the best. Yeah, we have 10,000 tools that we're selling. We don't price anything. And this is a way that we've balanced out capitalism and giving. So we don't price anything.
Seems to work. It seems in terms of that people who are maybe need a free membership, right?
Yeah.
Get that resource, and the people who can give more do.
It does. Yeah. People pay what they can and they value us. And that value just comes in the form of donation, whether that's money, time, expertise. It ends up being about $60 a year per person on average that we get. Yeah, and we have about 3,200 members. So the finances work out that way. Yeah. Yeah.
3,200 is really great. And would you say that all 3,200, are active in some way in utilizing the tools of the tool library? Or
I can't say everyone is. I think that there's definitely folks that are it's worth it for me to just donate this little bit of money. And if I need it, I need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think the majority of them do. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely folks that used us once because they were redoing their house, really got thousands upon thousands of dollars of value out of us, which we were happy to give them. And then, maybe donate the next year and use one pressure washer one time that year or don't for that year. And I definitely have donated before I was the director here. And as a member, I donated and didn't necessarily use it often, or maybe, missed a year, but it was always worth it to me that, knew that it would continue to exist. And so with the tool sale, similar thing, we don't price any of the tools. We have just tried another model where pay what you want. This is all donation. We want these tools to stay in use, out of the landfill. We don't want you to have to buy new, and you pay what you can. And people generally open up their wallets. The first time we did this model, we made $5,000 in one day. And then this last time we did it, including the new members and other donations, we made about $14,000 in a day.
Great.
Yeah.
And are these so I'm curious about tool procurement, and also what in terms of how do you all get tools for the library? And then when do you decide to sell a tool?
Sure. Yeah. We mostly get our tools stolen from job sites. No, I'm just joking. Yeah. They're mostly donated.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. We do get some tools stolen from us, but it's pretty minimal. I can talk about that later, but we're a pretty trusting community. And for every tool that's stolen, we get 100 donated. Yeah. We just, every single shift we're open, somebody comes in with at least a few tools, sometimes truckloads of tools.
Wow.
We've gone to places where, somebody, it's actually really a service that we give is by taking tools. We used to.
Where would they go? Right.
Exactly.
Like, people are done with their tools and there isn't a tool library. Yeah. What happens to them? They
either sit there or they go to the landfill or recycling at best. Yeah. And it's cool because when we talk to people that don't have tools, they're very excited to borrow tools. And we talk to the folks that are like, oh, I'm in contracting. I have 5 of every tool. We say, well, we take donations, and they get just as excited as the people that want to borrow tools. Mm-hmm. And we've had these really touching moments where somebody, has passed away. They've been a craftsperson for their whole life, and their spouse or their kids call us up and say, hey, we've got this like garage full of these beautiful tools, and we don't want them to just sit there. We don't want to use them. And they don't even necessarily feel good about like giving them to Goodwill, where it's a little more anonymous. Yeah. And so we're able to come and rescue them and keep them in circulation. And you can just feel the joy that the family members get knowing that these tools that were so loved are still going to be used and have another life, and it becomes this homage to their relatives. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think tools are, the way you said about how sharing resources is kind of one of the foundations of society, right? Like any society. So are tools.
Yes,
right?
Right. Exactly. Sharing tools was probably one of the first things that we shared. Yeah. I think it really, and this whole system of giving is like at the base of society, right? Like people started sharing because they needed to in order to survive. Mm-hmm. And somebody had the one fire maker, or, somebody would babysit for somebody else to go hunting, and that hunter would give them food, not because they made a deal, but because they wanted more babysitting in the future, and they saw the value of that person.
Right. Just the reciprocity around it is really profound. Okay. So can you explain to me, so I know, kind of how many members you have, how you started, but for those who've maybe never experienced this, what exactly is a tool library?
Yes. Well, first of all, you have to come in, because you can't really understand it until you see just 10,000 tools crammed into one small building. But that's what it is. We have, it's like a book library with a physical location. But instead of books, we're lending out tools. We have between our 2 locations over 10,000 tools that we lend for free. Mm-hmm. It's everything from power tools. What a tool is also a loose definition. It could be a party supply. We have like canopies and pressure washers and carpet cleaners. We have apple cider presses, chainsaws. We just started a board game and puzzle library. My 5-year-old son Cedar donated a bunch of his old toys to make the Abracadabra toy library.
Oh, that's
which
so
is really
cute.
Fun. Yeah, it's great. That. So we've got these stuffies and other little toys, and kids will come in and they get to borrow a toy and bring in either that toy or another toy back. So indoctrinating them into the world of reuse early.
I love that. That's so great. Because I think, what a tool is really interesting. You mentioned like craftspeople and the tools that they gather. I think there's so many wonderful ways that people are artists that use tools. And my one of our founders, Marion, is a fiber artist, and she has multiple large scale fiber art tools that she really wants to be able to share with people. And so she was very excited that I was talking to you, because she was like, I want to do that. And also a lot of community members here on the island are very interested in building a tool library. So, so we'll talk about that later, but so does lending work like a library? Like, how do people have cards? Is there a time limit? How does that work?
Yeah, the logistics. Yeah. So they get a membership. They don't need a card. They come in, say their name. You can have a family, it's a family membership, household membership. So you can have secondary members.
Cool.
Every tool has a number on it. It's inventoried. We use a software called MyTurn, which there's a lot of lending softwares out there. That's one that was created in West Seattle and has worked well for us. But yeah, folks give us their name. They can take out as many tools as they want. Literally fill up your truck. You get tools for 1 week up to a month, and then we ask for it back at that point. And then, make sure that it's working well, send it out again. And we have tools that have gone out hundreds of times to thousands, or probably thousands of times to hundreds of users. And yeah, we have a couple tools that we ask for donations if people are able, like pressure washers, just because we go through those pretty quick. They aren't supposed to be used that many times in 1 year. And so we do have to replace hoses or sometimes the whole machine. And so donations help with that. But generally speaking, all our tools besides that are free. People pay anywhere from $0 to thousands of dollars for their membership. Generally it's about 60. And that it's just that simple. It's just like a book library.
I love that. I am curious, because you mentioned power washers. How do you all deal with maintenance and like checking the function of a tool and whether or not it's still working, and what's that process like?
We ask everybody who brings it back if it's working well, and we kind of trust on that. And so there have been times where things have slipped through the cracks, go back out, and they're not working, which is a bit of a function of us being a small, funky nonprofit. But generally speaking, somebody comes in with a pressure washer, they say, hey, it didn't work. Sometimes we have pretty skilled members that have like said, hey, it wasn't working. I figured out it was this O-ring that had busted and we replaced it. And we're like, that's amazing. But we do have fixer rooms at our tool libraries, and then volunteer fixers. I can get into our volunteers if you want, but that's like such a huge part of what we're doing. We have fixers at every single level of what we're doing. 6 staff, interns that come in and out, and then over a year, we'll have around 200 volunteers that are involved in some way or another. And that's everything from just tool librarians that check in and check out tools, to our fixers, to our workshop, stewards, bike shack volunteers, all the way up to leadership. And our board is mostly volunteer run.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. How do you, I mean, that's really awesome. How do you become a fixer? What's kind of
you pick up a broken tool and you take it apart and you hopefully put it back together and it's working. And then you are a fixer. It's one of the simpler ones you do. And it's funny. People ask like, what are the qualifications for like certain things? Like being one workshop steward, it's good to know how to use, you need to know how to use some tools. For the fixers, it's helpful. And like, we get these like incredible retired Boeing engineers that can just, fix anything. But then we get folks that are just like, I want to know more. And we're like, well, this tool's already broken, so you can't break it more. Go ahead and just mess with it. And so they jump on Google and watch YouTubes and take it apart and put it back together. And it's pretty amazing to watch somebody fix their first tool and the satisfaction they get.
Yeah. I feel like I would be on that end of the spectrum of just like, it's already broken. And I know nothing. So
right.
I learn how to
start whacking at it. Right. And we have some of the more experienced folks that sometimes are able to like, point people in the right direction and use some of their knowledge. But it's a lot of trial and error. We have the shops at the space that people work on, but also some folks it's their hobby. They take home old blades to sharpen, or many pressure washers with kinked hoses to replace, and nail guns with missing parts and all sorts of stuff. And really these tools are like, not necessarily commercial grade tools, and they're being used almost at a commercial level in terms of how often they're being used. And, people don't necessarily know what they're doing, and we do as much training as we can, but there's definitely user error, which can go both ways, where you can get something back and somebody says, oh, this thing's broken and it's just a switch they didn't flip, or they just misused the tool and now it's pretty messed up and we got to fix it. And so that's definitely part of the game.
Speaking of that, how do you educate people on how to use tools properly? Yeah,
everywhere from formal classes. We have intro to power tools, or more sophisticated classes like routers and planers. We have sewing classes. we do like also just discussions and talks about reuse and recycling. And then there's more informal stuff. We have a very quick 10 to 15 minute chainsaw class that we give for anybody who wants to take out a chainsaw, just to make sure they're not going to be chopping off their arms, but it doesn't get into like the detail about felling a tree. It's more just the basics. And then there's just really informal stuff where somebody's like, hey, I got to cut this 2x4 at an angle. What's the right tool? And so volunteers will do it. There's also this wonderful synergy that happens at the tool library where somebody's like, I'm working on a deck. What's the tool? And some other member will be like, oh, I've been building decks for 40 years. Come with me. And the other member will like pick out the right tools for them and sit them down or even go help them out. We've had members just like, I'm going to come to your house and help you get started and, set some lines out for your deck. And it's kind of a community fairy tale in that way.
Yeah, I love that. I am curious. You did mention with the chainsaws, but it sounds like with that, it's more like a safety thing. Like you won't let someone check out a chainsaw unless you do the 15 minutes.
Yeah. And it's a little bit of a liability thing. It's also, it's three reasons. It's liability, it's safety for them, and it's also safety for our tool. That's a tool that comes back messed up all the time. And I'd say 60 to 70% of the time somebody wants to use a chainsaw, they're actually better off using a reciprocating saw. And so one of the first questions we ask is, hey, like what's the thing you're doing with this? And usually it's a small enough job or they're going to be trying to get some roots out in the dirt, and a different tool makes more sense.
Okay. What is a reciprocating saw?
Also known as a sawzall. It's there's like, millions of different saws, but this is a pretty popular one. It's used a lot for demo, but you can use it for pruning too. And it's just got a blade that reciprocates in and out, back and forth. Okay. And so it does really rough cuts, but can take things out pretty quickly, and you can be relatively rough with it because the blades are smaller and a little more disposable.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, sure. And that's often how the education looks at the tool library, is exactly like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess because it is one of those things where it's a very hands-on, arena, like using a tool, learning how to use a tool requires just both hands-on training and experience. And, it's not like you go to, I don't know. Do people go to college for tool?
There's trade schools. Yeah, absolutely.
Trade school. I guess that's true. It's like kind of like a trade school situation, which is really amazing.
We think we fit more into the like pre-apprenticeship world, where somebody who just really doesn't know that much can get involved and take off some of the edge of the intimidation, because there's a lot of barriers to tools, whether it's space, money, time, or like in certain circumstances like gender, like cultural norms.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I don't feel very adept at most tools. Like I'm like, I wouldn't consider myself a tool person, but it's not because I'm not interested. It's just because there is kind of a large barrier to any type of tool. For me, the tool that I learned how to use most recently was a sewing machine, which also is very gendered in the sense that I probably don't already know how to do that as a woman, but I had never, really embarked in sewing until last year or the year before. And it's really awesome to have somebody who is skilled help you learn how to do that. And I was very lucky to have a friend who makes her own clothes, who was willing to teach me all of the very basic steps of the sewing machine, including how to thread my bobbin, which was like a huge milestone. It was a huge barrier. I was so intimidated by the bobbin of my sewing machine. Yeah. And then when I learned how to do it, I was like, I felt very empowered, and I made an entire garment, right? Like it was like this one thing standing in my way.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. We just have dozens of wonderful stories like that of folks being like, I've never picked up a drill, and we're like the gateway drug into DIY world. And there is an intimidation factor to it. And we are lucky enough that our community is, well, I wouldn't say lucky. We are very intentional about being very inclusive. And so our board is mostly women. Our staff is, besides myself, all women or non-binary. Volunteers run the gambit. But we're always looking specifically for like female and non-binary instructors to teach tool classes. But we're selective about the males that teach and make sure that they are aware of their bias and, being as inclusive and not mansplaining much as they can, even though it's part of the job of instructing. But we find that the feedback we get generally is that it feels inclusive, and we have an incredibly diverse membership economically, racially, gender, sexual orientation. So that feels like we're going in the right direction. And I don't know if achieving that goal, I think our goal with inclusivity now is our volunteership and our leadership is not as diverse as we'd like it to be. So we're getting, multiple perspectives and reaching the communities we want to reach. Cool. But yeah, that's what we're working towards.
Yeah, it's making me think of, I live on Whidbey Island, and during the winter, we have a lot of power outages because trees will fall and the power lines will go down, and the windstorms can be kind of intense. And so felled trees become a huge barrier for communities across the island, whether it falls across your roadway or trails in your backyard, or if it, did knock out a power line or very unfortunately fall on your car or something, there's a real need for people to know how to remove trees. And I call them the storm Santas, but it's usually a fleet of neighbors who are generally older gentlemen with beards who come out with their chainsaws and, remove the blockages for the community. But you're making me think about the ways in which, education around that could be helpful to make it more inclusive and for more community members to know how to do that kind of thing.
I love that.
Yeah. So you've mentioned kind of some of the very touching stories that the tool library has kind of brought into your world, but I'm wondering what some of the highlights and challenges are of working in the tool lending space.
Sure. I'll start with the highlights. I love seeing someone realizing just how amazing the tool library is as a resource. And when we're talking about it in public, people are generally pretty excited about the idea. But when you get somebody into the space and they look around and they see just how many tools there are and the variety of tools, and there's this moment where they see some tool or see some space that it dawns on them exactly how much is there. And it's and they say something like, "Oh, whoa." And you're like, yeah, this is, there's something here, right? And it's this little hidden gem. And, or they make a donation for their membership for the year and they're sitting there with a pile of tools and they're like, wait, I'm only donating $60. And they're looking at $500 worth of tools, and that math hits them, and you just feel the enthusiasm and excitement. That's amazing to me. Or somebody like your story about learning how to use a bobbin, somebody come back and they're like, I just built my first chair. You're like, that's amazing. That is so cool. You know how to do this thing now. You can do this thing for yourself. But I'll tell one story that is my favorite. That was the moment that made me cry about when I was working at the tool library. So this woman came in, and she was in distress, you could tell. And she was talking to myself and a volunteer and explained that she had just gotten out of an abusive relationship. And he had been the one who had taken care of their home, but he was gone, and she didn't know how to take care of the home and didn't have the tools to do it. And was looking around really timidly and trepidatiously, and finally asked how much to use the space. And the volunteer was like, it's whatever you want. It's free if you don't have the money. And she began to cry. And she was just she was realizing that she had these resources for free. And we explained that we also have people we have classes that she could take for free, that we can talk her through some of this stuff. And you could just feel this relief of I can do this. I can take care of myself and take care of this home. And it was beautiful.
That is beautiful. That's such a great story of community support, right? Feeling resourced in all ways. That just walking into a place where, you're able to both find the tools you need and the support to use those tools, and the ways in which that has impact and quality of life and sense of agency. I think that's kind of a story about agency, or finding agency.
Realizing right. That's a good word for it.
Yeah. So that's really wonderful.
We think of it as sharing abundance.
Yeah.
There's just, if folks can rethink how they're relating to money and resources, that we don't need to give away everything. We don't need to stop buying stuff. But if we can share what we have an abundance of, then you can still take care of yourself while taking care of your community. And in taking care of your community, it comes back around.
Yeah, I love that. What are some of the challenges of working in the tool lending space?
Yeah. Money and space.
Yeah.
We're a nonprofit, and this is, for any business, but certainly nonprofits, certainly in the Seattle area, space is extremely limited and extremely expensive. Inflation's going up, and it's not expected for tool libraries and nonprofits to raise their prices. It's like there's a cultural norm against it. And so even if gas prices are going up and our rent is going up and our staffing costs are going up, there is more hesitation for us to raise prices, and it looks worse. So simply the business behind it is challenging.
Yeah.
We do. Yeah, I can get into the kind of the numbers of the whole thing and how we are sustaining, but that's really one of the biggest challenges. Inventory is a big challenge. We have tons of tools. People just donate tools, but just keeping it all organized and the space not looking like a mess and disheveled is a constant battle against stuff. Generally speaking, the community is amazing. Like I said, some people steal from us or forget to bring things back, but we kind of build that into the business plan because we get so much given to us, and we'd rather be trusting and get taken advantage of a little bit than have to be looking over our shoulder all the time.
Yeah.
And we've stopped a couple of folks that were trying to walk out with stuff, but it's not.
That doesn't happen that often.
Not enough for us to. We've talked about do we need to put deposits on more expensive tools, and some tool libraries do that. It hasn't become enough of a problem, the tools not coming back, that we feel like we need to do a deposit at this point. But that's an option we could do if we needed to. But yeah, and then in space, we could expand a lot. We're doing these reused building supplies now, and we're looking at creating a much, much bigger space. So this is an exciting project that we're working on. We got some funding from Offices of Economic Development in Seattle and the Washington Department of Ecology it's seed money to put together a board, which we've done, and move forward a project that we're calling the Reuse Commons. And this is a sustainability mall, basically a shared space with 20 to 30 reuse and repair stores all in one spot, where folks could come there before they go to the recycling center and drop off anything that still has life. We'd redistribute it into our stores that are all in one spot. People could have a regular shopping experience, but it's all reuse and repair, and there would be sustainable food there and general community building, education, all that. And so this is built off an idea, a mall like this in Sweden called REtuna, which is amazing. Cool. Recommend checking that out. Yeah. And so, we're at the beginning stages of that, but that is something that has some momentum. Some other nonprofits in the circular world and several government agencies are really excited about it. But space and money are the thing that's going to hold that back. And
right, because you have to be able to have, I mean, would it be a space, I guess, a building space that would be rented, or would it be owned?
In the ideal world, we own it. In the ideal world, it's owned, and it's near a transfer station. There are these spaces out there, but it's going to take millions of dollars. And
right.
So
that's what I was going to say. That's in the millions of dollars.
It's in the millions, yeah.
And you all are, what stage exactly are you at? You've gotten some grant funding and you have a board. Yeah.
So we're really at the planning stages. We're looking at other funding. We are visioning and designing it out. We had some UW interns working on some marketing materials, some preliminary budgets, some design features. UW has jumped on with us. Their human-centered design and engineering department is working with us for the design aspects of it. So we're still community building, gathering partners, putting down a plan, and setting up a timeline.
Do you have a sense of what kind of reuse stores you'd want in that?
Some of our partners, Seattle REcreative, that does reused art supplies, they're amazing. Zero Waste Washington. Well, actually, I think that this program just became its own program. It's part of Zero Waste Washington, is now Furniture Repair Bank, and they save furniture from going to the landfill, have volunteers and staff fix it, and then redistribute that to low-income families and refugee families. They are incredible. Potentially Refugee Artisan Initiative, which is another one of my favorite circular nonprofits. They employ refugee women to sew reused materials into beautiful garments and bags. They're the best. More traditional thrift store or even a Goodwill type thing, used electronics, used recreational equipment, probably electronic repair, and then possibly some subset of lending libraries, whether that's libraries of things, tool libraries, medical devices. Depends on kind of where it ends up, if it's close to a tool library already or what that community needs to be lent out.
Wow, that's a really cool project. I can't wait to hear more about it, and I'll be following.
All right. Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, that's really great. So what have you kind of personally, I don't know, I mean, you've mentioned some things, but what have you personally learned through this work? Kind of what are your key takeaways?
I have learned that there are some solutions. There's things that we can be doing, like the businesses I just mentioned and our own, that work within capitalism, that are generally just supported from everybody. They're kind of apolitical. Like we have conservatives and liberals come to the tool library. It works in down economic times and boom times. People are building or they need to save money. It works when there's supply chain issues. So there are these solutions, but they are minuscule drops in the bucket. And so, sadly, I've also learned that our situation is dire. And the more I get into this, the more I see how much work it takes to start shifting the culture. And I think that more than actually saving materials from going to the landfill or being bought, the good, even though I think that is really good, I think the more good we're doing is shifting cultural norms and getting folks more used to the idea of sharing and not owning. And I think that that's going to have a greater impact from our perspective. I'm really happy there's folks working on large solar arrays and huge industrial reuse. And I think that needs to happen just as much as smaller folks doing cultural shifts. So like with the reuse commons, that will be a bigger scale where we'll be able to keep more out of the landfill and should have a bigger impact. But even that, I think, will be more on the cultural shift than it will be on the actual keeping materials out of landfill. But we've also worked with some partners at King County Solid Waste that are working on like a 5-acre circular campus they have a dream for. And that would be less forward focusing and cultural shifting as it would be actually keeping stuff out of the landfill.
Yeah. And it seems like I'm hearing what you're saying is that there are multiple, kind of needs at work. And one of them is just in terms of how much waste we generate as a consumer-based society, and how, it just creates this very practical logistical problem of there being a huge amount of waste in landfills everywhere. And that's happening on an individual level and an industrial level. Yeah. I had a colleague on, David Haskell, who's part of the Whidbey Climate Action Group here, talk about the zero waste movement and his relationship with waste management in New Zealand, and just talking about how, like, systematically, how we don't clean stream our waste, and how that's when it becomes waste, right? Like, things can actually be reused when they're not all mingled together and then, shoved down in a landfill. Right. So there's that aspect. But as you said, there's also the cultural shifting aspect, which is really just about our mindset as a society and in individual people. And what you said about sharing versus ownership, it makes me think about, I think, how so much of the indoctrinated self-worth of American people has to do with owning things. Yeah. Yeah. And how, like, how lovely it is to engage in work that shifts that focus to how our well-being and our self-worth, and also the well-being of our communities, is, about sharing.
And, that's so well said.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I think it's wonderful. Like, I think, there's something, but it's deeply held in our society, right? Like private property ownership is the foundation of America in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, I was talking with a volunteer the other day about how we are in this really crazy time of waste that is very, very new. But we don't think we were born into it. And so we just think that this is the norm, but plastics didn't exist until recently. And the Industrial Revolution was so short. Like it just happened. Before that, people didn't have that many items. Like I was reading Yuval Noah Harari's book, Sapiens, and he's talking about how many artifacts, items people would own. And we own in our house, probably wherever you are listening to this, you could look around and see more items than whole entire civilizations would have in their history. Like, somebody would have, maybe 50 items that they would have in their lifetime. And now we go through hundreds of items in a day. And so the waste at this moment is unprecedented. And on the other side of things, it can't last forever. So this blip of waste is what it feels like. Right. Like if we keep on wasting this level, we're going to just destroy everything, destroy ourselves, and have no place to put waste. So this is this moment that feels normal because we were born into it, but it's not normal.
Yeah, it's not normal. I do find it interesting, and also I appreciate that. And I haven't read that book, but I will put it on my list.
It's a good one.
Yeah. But like putting an economy of reuse into a mall is a really great way to kind of like soft launch the cultural shift, because I feel like the mall is the epicenter of consumerism and consumer waste, in at least in our lifetimes. Totally. The idea of the American mall. I mean, I don't know when the first malls came about, actually, but it seems like it was not also like a 20th century. Yeah. Probably later 20th century thing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, in the way that we understand them. Right. And there's so much culture around that for sure. And I like the idea of a remall, like let's repurpose everything.
Yeah, I think we do that, on the island, we do that really well here through our thrifting culture. We have a really strong thrift store community, and like, everybody thrifts. Everybody sends their, furniture to Habitat for Humanity. Everybody picks. I think almost entirely everything in my apartment is thrifted or gone from an estate sale or, anything like that. But we don't have a tool library. And so it's really, and I think that's like a really big kind of gap in our economies of reuse here, which people really do try, and people really are pretty conscious. But it would be really cool to have this kind of resource. And I'm kind of wondering, like, based on your experience, like how you think communities like ours can consider reuse and sustainability in local economies, like both with tool libraries and beyond tool libraries.
Yeah, I think starting with the need is a great way to think about it. You're talking about the logs that are the trees that are falling. Like that's such a great place to start. I would look to other islands as well. Vashon has a series of 8 libraries. They have a tool library. They have a carrying closet, the care closet, I think it's called. That is a medical device library.
That's so cool.
And then they have like 6 other libraries and the book library. And, on National Library Week, they send everybody to all the different libraries and everybody does tours of them. And so I would look around Whidbey and these other communities and think, what's the need and what do you have an abundance of? What can you share that abundance of? But certainly, a tool library is a great way to go.
That's really cool. We have you're reminding me of our food bank, because we have a pretty incredible food bank here. It's the Good Cheer Food Bank. And I think we are also an agricultural community, and we do have and lots of people have their own fruit trees and their own, gardens. And oftentimes there's abundance of food.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah. I've wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to start a business that was called Community Sustained Gleaning. Other folks have done the City Fruit in Seattle, but basically where folks would subscribe into a model instead of getting like a CSA, they'd get a box of gleaned food, and that could be, stuff that's about to expire but still has some life in it, from the grocery store to fruit that's falling.
There's so much falling fruit. I think like informally people will just go around to their neighbors and
totally. And having a community apple cider press, like we built this really beautiful apple cider press. So we do have folks that will go and glean and then come and press apples at our apple cider press.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I think, there's a lot of ways to do it, but I love it. You have examples there, you have community, and that's the biggest thing. I haven't heard of somebody doing it super successfully, but I'm sure it's being done. I just haven't heard about it. But I've talked to several people in agricultural areas that want to figure out how to do tool lending on a bigger scale. Our biggest tools are like cement mixers and jackhammers, but I don't know how the logistics work, but is there a way to have a shared combine or compost spreader?
Or to share tractors and stuff. Like I'm like thinking about tools, from a very hyper local perspective. Like, what are the tools that are available in abundance on the island? And who needs them? Right. Like we actually. Oh, go ahead.
Well, the big question usually becomes maintenance and storage on those things. But I think that those are workoutable. But I'd interrupt you. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, because we have an organic farm school on the island, and it produces lots of really great farmers who sometimes end up staying on the island and starting their own farms. And so as a startup farmer, I can only imagine that the tools required to do that work are incredibly expensive. And that if you had a tool library that included agricultural tools, that it could be like a huge resource for people who are just starting their career, just starting their first farm, and also for community members who have homesteads, because we live in an area where some people have 10 or 20 acres of land. Some people are starting their own, family farm. Maybe it's not it's not at a commercial level, but it still requires
a pressure canner would be great. Really high quality pressure canners or dehydrators. Would be great for you all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. This is really interesting. It's like a good framework to think about in terms of what our community can do and what's possible and how we might be able to go about formulating our own libraries based on the needs of the community and what we have in abundance, like you said. Right.
I think that's where you start. I mean, I think you start by getting a team together and then having that conversation. Like, what do we need? What do we have abundance of? Who's in? Who wants to move this forward? And then scope is a big question. There's so many sizes. I've seen tool libraries that are 200 square feet, and I've seen tool libraries that are 5,000 square feet and cover a lot of different items. Looking at what resources you have around also, as far as like what kind of government support could you get? Does the library itself want to be involved? Churches and community centers often have some little space. I've seen folks start things in shipping containers. Space is like the big thing. I would just say if folks are interested in getting this going, start looking at spaces immediately and spreading the word. The more people that know about it, the more likely that the right space would come up. And generally speaking, the life cycle of a tool library goes where you get some free space. Like we started in the church basement that was way too small, or somebody retrofits a shipping container or something like that. And you're there for a while and it's mostly volunteer run. And it's a little bit of a challenge. The space doesn't totally work. You don't have the accountability and the consistency of a staff member. And then eventually you either have the funds or you raise the funds or something, or you take the jump to get a bigger space that really fits your needs and or a staff member that can have that consistency into volunteer management. And that's when I've seen tool libraries be able to take off a little bit more. So when they have that. And then, I mentioned My Turn, but there's other softwares out there. Most of them will let you try it for free or use it for free if you're small. There's also a partner of ours that I want to mention called shareable.net. And they are an amazing resource. They do publications and community organizing around sharing economy.
Cool.
And it's really vast. And so we've been working with them to put together a starter kit, a toolkit for starting new tool libraries or growing your existing tool library.
Oh,
and
awesome.
So Yeah, it's really cool. We just did a bunch of recordings, these presentations, and I don't think they're fully available yet, but they should be this fall, along with a bunch of resources like liability waivers and membership models and just a ton of stuff.
Cool. And you said that was shareable.net? Yeah,
shareable.net. Love them. Yeah. And the other exciting thing that kind of plays into that. So when I say we've been working with them, the we is we partnered up with several of the biggest tool libraries around the country, because there's actually like 14, including us, in just the Puget Sound area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All the way to Tacoma, Vashon, many in Seattle. But there is, I'm not exactly sure, but probably over 100 in the United States.
Wow.
And probably over 300 worldwide. But it's hard to exactly tell, because somebody lending having some just out of their garage can be a tool lending library. And then there's also like Berkeley, California, it's part of their library system is their tool library. So there's a big spectrum of how it looks. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we partnered with Baltimore, Chicago, New York, Denver, several other of the biggest tool libraries around the country. And we've created the National Tool Library Alliance, which we are using to strengthen what we're already doing and grow our impact. And then also to create these resources for folks hoping to start their own, because it's really trending. We're getting calls. All of us are getting calls on a weekly basis about starting tool libraries. So we want to be able to send them to one spot to get started.
That's amazing. So it's the National Tool Library Alliance. Mm-hmm. And that's where people can go for additional resources to kind of.
Yeah, we're pretty new. So folks can email me if they want, Josh at seattlereconomy.org, or just check out shareable.net. But generally, I recommend doing your own research, trying to find some stuff before reaching out to a tool library. We talk to so many folks, and getting a better sense of what your resources are and what you need.
But for people who are looking to start a tool library, you need to look for needs in the community, things you have in abundance or services you have in abundance, and have a team of people who are willing to put the work in to make it happen.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds about right. And, I think that's really great. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we depart?
If you're thinking about doing this, do it. It's the best. It really makes sense right now. So let me know if I can help. We do tours all the time. So,
cool.
You're just in Whidbey, come on down, let me know. I can give you a tour of either of our tool libraries.
Oh yeah. No, I will do that. I will 100% come to the library. Yeah.
That's great. Love that.
Cool.
I love that this culture is there on the island, and I hope it just keeps on growing. And one thing that's great about being in the tool library and circular economy world is that we're not just sharing tools. We share everything. And so with that Tool Library Alliance or this podcast or anything, we're open books. Nothing's proprietary. It's all of it is for the betterment of everybody. So we just wanted to share.
I really, really appreciate that. I think a culture of sharing is exactly what we need, and exactly what we need for our future to be a sustainable one. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and speaking with us. And thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thanks, Amanda, and good luck getting your new tool library going.
Another man up in the pulpit in the State House. Head of the table with the black pen, scratching egos, talking too loud. Externalize every outcome, every warm gun, every profit. And kneeling down to the flashing numbers, the NASDAQ, the cold constructs, running backwards to just keep moving, just keep moving, just keep moving. Unlearning every lesson that our mothers tried to teach us.
This podcast is a production of the Whidbey Environmental Action Network and is made possible by our generous donors. Produced, edited, and mixed by me, Amanda Bullis. Special thanks to Marianne and Steve for their years of service through action and for lending their voices to this podcast. To WEEN's Executive Director, Marnie Jackson, and our board for their leadership. Special thanks to Whidbey musician and WEEN board member, Nathaniel Talbot, for letting us use his track, Intuition, from the album Animal, available on Bandcamp.
Every day on your paycheck, a volume, confidence, a against the idea of your body being put into your own hands. So please don't hold it, please don't hold it, please don't hold it back. Unleash the power, the straight logic of compassion. What I need now ain't that old religion or the cold hard facts. Just need a woman's intuition, get us on track. Just need a woman's intuition, get us on track. Stepping out of the shadow of a false man's allegory, slowly erasing that old violence from the story. Recoupling emotion, slow emotion to intelligence, granting the planters, healers, teachers, feelers a new relevance. What I need now ain't that old religion or the cold